Welcome to Thirsty Smurfing Thursday. How's everybody doing? My name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor. Sometimes I go by anti-commie. Sometimes I'm anti-collectivist. Did I say that out loud? Sorry. I just got out of the shower, so trying to cool off here. What are some other things I can throw in there that would be quasi offensive to?
Why don't you just go ahead and do the whole the pre-show from the previous burn return? We'll just play that for me. Can we jump to that? Please make that our jump. If we ever go off the rails and you really need to like ascend back up out of the gutter, we'll just dump to that. That'll be our primary. Just have a button ready, J-Pink.
Yeah, it'll launch into it.
You know, if we started the show, Patreon member, you'll know all about it. Go ahead.
You remember we started the show with the cut from what's his nuts?
Oh yeah, Bill O'Reilly. Can we play that right now? Matt died.
Look at that. The internet.
Xi Jinping
just
canceled your internet.
He did.
We'll do it live.
Okay. Where's my hammer and sickle?
No.
Anyway,
can we watch the video? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we can watch the video. I don't care.
No. The Bill O'Reilly, the band plan.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today.
Oh, is this it?
Okay, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have the band
watch it
queued up.
I'll
have to get it.
We'll watch it at the end.
It's still good.
Watch it at the end.
Still good. Anyway, special episode. We have guests of honor tonight. And right. This will be the officially today. This will be the youngest guest we've ever had on the show. We have give us a little rundown. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Give us a rundown because there are so many questions I have, and I know that over the phone you've given us a little bit, but when, who, what, when, where, why, when did it hit you in whatever or wherever it hit you when you were like, man, I really think I gotta do the turf?
It didn't really hit me. So graduating high school, I worked at a burger place, if that makes any sense. Like it was like a little tiny like Burger Shack restaurant. And I did that for 3 years. And I mean, you guys probably understand. You graduate high school, like you want to do a little bit more, so not work at a restaurant. So I had a guy that my dad. Well, backstory: my family owned a John Deere dealership here in town. It was like 4 generations deep. So I've kind of been in the green industry my whole life, just on the equipment side of things. And there was a customer of my dad's, and he was looking to hire some like a turf tech pretty much. And so got a job doing that, and that's kind of what opened the door for me.
That
funny how that works out.
And then it just catapulted.
Yeah. It's interesting how that shift occurs, and then all of a sudden you caught the bug, and then you're like, damn it, I got to do the damn thing. So Jason, tell us about yourself. What do you do right now? What are you doing? What is your current state, 1 year state, and 5 year state look like?
Wow. So currently I work at a pretty big landscape company here in town. I don't know exactly what my title would be, kind of like a turf manager, I guess. I'm the head guy at where I'm at. So that's where I'm at now. 1 year plan. Hopefully I'll be out of the 2-year program at Penn State. So that's the 1 year plan. 5-year plan. I'd like to be doing something in sports turf. That's definitely what I want to do. So let's hope that works out. If not, I guess I'll go be homeless and live on the side of the street. I don't know, but that's the plan for now.
I've actually got a really nice refrigerator box. You can come join me. We can split rent.
DeMay is our sports turf extraordinaire. What draws you to sports turf? Are you an athlete, former athlete?
Yeah,
is that part of the draw?
pretty much. Yeah. I played soccer since I was like 3 years old and played some basketball. But growing up, really played on good fields, if that makes any sense. They were always terrible. Big 2-foot holes, in the middle of a field and stuff like that. And so it always irritated me growing up, like having to play with somebody that didn't care about the surface. Um, and it still does. I don't live far from. There's some sports fields that are like a half mile from my house, and I ride over there quite frequently, and they always look terrible. And so it just irritates me, just so deep that people don't care. And I don't know. I want to do a better job than what other people do. So, and I want to hopefully try and impact some people in a better way.
I love it. And I would say, what would you call that? I will say there's going to be multiple points from here moving forward where you're going to reach real existential crises. And we'll call it that. I call them midlife crises. I guess a more technical term or accurate term would be midlife crises. And I think a lot of it too is coming to grips with the fact that I mean, we just parlay right into that quote you shared last week, Demay. I mean, that is that is the existential crisis of turf in a nutshell, right? And like, I love don't I guess what I'm trying to say is that don't ever lose sight of that fervor of wanting to leave a lasting impact, right? Like, because
Yeah.
you're going to go through days where it just feels like there is nothing positive going right, and it may last months. It may last 3 weeks. It may
That's
last a
been this week.
day. Yeah, and
This week has been rough.
I promise the older you get, the more it's one of those things. It's like it's a perceived crisis in your youth, right? And then as you get a little bit older, you realize you're like, actually, that wasn't such a big deal. And then when you get older and it happens, and you're like, fuck, man, I'm damn near 40 years old, trying to get myself out of this. Like, I don't have a whole lot of time left, and so it becomes a self-imposed crippling of sorts that begins to happen. So I guess where I'm going with this too is take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. Don't be scared of making mistakes, because there's always good things that can happen on the flip side. And it's always a calculated risk to reward ratio, but however it shakes out is how it shakes out. DeMay, here we've got young Buck wanting to get into sports turf. I'm curious, what's your train of thought when you hear that, and I don't know. I'm curious to hear what questions you have and all that fun stuff.
Oh boy, there's a lot I think about going into sports turf, especially off the bat. There's a lot of great opportunities out there. No matter where you go and what you want to do, I think that everybody automatically thinks sports turf, and they think, major league ball field, or, working in an NFL stadium, MLS, something like that. And, the truth of the matter is that they're just like what you said, Jason, at the beginning here is, it's that, and it's also, parks and rec fields, it's high school fields, middle school fields, things where, kids coming up have, a field to play on, and that field is going to directly impact, maybe how good they can get, how much fun they have, if they get hurt or not, like, real palpable things, real important things. And probably, I would say what drew me to it is, and maybe it has the same thing. You talked about impact,
Yeah.
a good day when I was in the golf business, a good day was 150 people got to enjoy, what me and the other guys on the crew did, and there was some point, I don't know, 10 or so years ago, where I thought, man, that's cool, but it's not cool enough anymore. That edge was lost. And so, that was one of the reasons I moved. And it's interesting to hear you say that, especially at such a young age. And, so I went to a place that had thousands, literally more than thousands, hundreds of thousands at that location, and millions, literally, of people that played at all our facilities. So a good night there, a good day there was, 5, 10, 15,000 people having a good time because of what we did. And that's important. So I think having a purpose, is really important. I mean, I would say this to any young person starting out, and I do have some questions, but I just want to say this real quick, is that I think in the beginning when you start doing this, and I think back to my time when I was young, and this is what I knew I wanted to do this from the jump. There was a little period where I thought I didn't, and I got talked back into it by some good people in my life, some family members and other things like that. Hey, go try it and do it and whatnot. But I think the number one thing here is you have to have a purpose, right? If you have no purpose of why you're doing it, you ain't going to be in it very long. And if your purpose is to get rich or make money, hand over fist, well, you might have to move to South Carolina and be the lawn barber or something like that. I don't know. After that, so purpose is number one. Number two is confidence, right? So it's important that you work for people that will help you live out that purpose every day, or as many opportunities as they can give you, because it's not going to be every day that you're motivated to do what you want to do or inspired to do what you want to do. And that's the mark of a professional, somebody that can go out and do it in spite of maybe not being inspired or that, feeling it, so to speak, that day. But I think with confidence, it comes down to working for somebody or a group of people that want to help you get better, so that when you go out there, I mean, think about your first day at work, right? You go into a place, and first time you hopped on a sprayer or whatever piece of equipment it was, you're probably like, oh shit, man, I hope I don't break this. I hope nothing bad happens, right? And without that confidence, yeah, we all do. And it doesn't, you're not a human being if you don't feel that. But you get more and more confident. Sometimes you get overconfident. Sometimes you make mistakes and do things dumb. I mean, we've all been there too, but confidence. So if you have purpose and you have confidence, you will do good things, right? I think you can go on from there and do things, of mastering your craft and things like that. And I think those are the people that we speak to. And the last part, the highest level, I think it doesn't matter what you do, but especially in this industry is, you got to give back, and really what the mark of, I think, the highest level of leadership in this profession is making others better, right? You're always going to have people that you have to lead, whether it's by position, title, or just your influence within an organization or an employer or whatever. And if you're not making other people better, even if you're not in a leadership position, you're not trying to help somebody do better. And that doesn't always have to be your staff or your employees. It could be your customers, it could be your vendors, whatever. If you're not doing that, I don't know, you're not all the way there yet. So a lot to think about, a lot to dive into. But tell me, NC State, how did you go from working at the dealership to, you know what, I want to go in this 2-year program and see what this is all about?
Well, I never worked at the dealership. It was just like growing up as a kid, I always hung out inside of there, hanging out with my mom or my dad, and just kind of watching like landscapers come in and doing stuff like that. But I don't know. Ever since when I got my first job, coming up on 3 or 4 years ago, I don't remember, being a turf tech. It was a good time. I enjoyed it, but I always kind of wanted to do a little more than just that. So I started looking around, trying to find a school. So I had narrowed it down to NC State, Tennessee, and Penn State. And just for Matt, real quick, there you go. I had to rep it. I had to bring it from just for Matt. But
don't encourage him.
Yeah, so
it feels like 98 in here, baby.
Jesus. T. Martin's like 50 years old.
I couldn't leave and go to Tennessee. Just the job I had at the time, I liked it a lot, and I would have felt really bad if I left. So kind of had to cross Tennessee out because they didn't have an online program. So it was narrowed down to NC State and Penn State. Of course, NC State, that would have been like the easy go because it's in state. It'd be cheaper. They have an online program. It'd be pretty simple. But I don't know. I started watching videos of Dr. Kaminsky over at Penn State. and started reading. I think it's the textbook is called Turfgrass Management. I think is just what it's called.
Yeah.
And started reading that 2 years ago, and it had me hooked. That was like the coolest thing.
Those days. Ah.
Yeah, and so I was like, man, I want to go to school for this, but I hadn't told my parents at the time. I hadn't told any of my friends. Nobody knew. It was just kind of like something I wanted to do. And I was going to community college at the time, and I hated it. Like it was not fun at all. It just felt like I was kind of, like when you're swimming and you're just kind of like treading water, and it doesn't feel like you're making any progress, and you don't know what you're doing. It was pretty much that, and basically decided, yeah, I want to go to Penn State, and so hadn't said anything, and I'll say it on air. I don't really care. I screwed up a lot at community college. Just pretty much gave up. Like
you're fine.
It wasn't fun. Like I said, I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was stupid. Some of the classes I was having to take just to get like a basic associates in applied science. Pretty much gave up. Got in a lot of trouble for that. Mom and Dad didn't like that too much, but somehow ended up talking them into letting me go to Penn State. I don't know how I pulled that one out of my rear end, but did that, and then coming up on it, I'm finishing up my second semester there, and it's like the coolest thing in the world. I love it. So,
what I like specifically about it too is that the core classes that you have to take like at community college or any 4-year university. Those core classes are, so many of them are just hot garbage. It's like, man, this is a gigantic waste of time, and you're ushered in there like elephants in a zoo, and it's chaos, and no one gives a shit. And 50, 60 kids in there, everybody's staring at a projector, and a TA at the front of the room that no one wants to hear speak. And all right, look, it's about beer 30. I would really, really love to get out of here, and then it's hard to get into. Now, as you get more into specific courses like enrolling, and you're doing the 2-year Penn State program,
the associate's degree, yes, sir.
Yeah,
I'll probably go into a 4-year after this.
But what's great about it is that so much of the core, the base curriculum, is bypassed, and you go immediately into what's actionable, right? The shit that you want to learn, that you need to learn, that's going to have the real lasting impact. What I like about doing it that way, and then enrolling into getting your 4-year degree, is that all of a sudden what you'll learn in the 2-year degree is what is going to be most important, what your gaps in education will be. So that way, as you move towards a 4-year degree, you can make sure to fill those gaps and what you lack that's currently holding you back, and fill them in with things that will actually be applicable, rather than, well, it says I got to take this English class, so I'm going to take this English class, right? Like thinking back, if I had to do it all over again, how much more time I would have spent in chemistry versus what I actually did spend in chemistry, right? Like I learned way more in AP Chem in high school than I did in Chem in college, right? And
really, Matt?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. If I had to do it all over again, I would have gone way further into Chem, but probably way further into organic Chem too. And I didn't have to take organic Chem in college, and I did.
You didn't have to, right?
I had to do a fair amount of organic Chem in high school, AP Chem. So, it's you recognize things like that as you move through that accelerated program and get your feet wet, and especially now that you're out in the field. Like, again, I keep pointing at chemistry so much so because it's a lot of what I use in my day job now. But like stoichiometric conversions, right? Of converting between units, and all of a sudden it's saving your ass because, oh man, I remember doing that. Yeah, so it makes it easy. Sweet. I figured out how to solve that problem. Simple things, ratios, that came from, whatever math class. You're like, hey, I need to brush up on that. Well, perfect. I can take that class here in my 4-year degree, get brushed up on it, and it's going to make a lot more applicable sense to me as I move on through my career, right? And I think, in my opinion, I think that is a way smarter way to go about it. And I think also what you're doing, and this is what I wish I would have done, is worked in the industry from the get-go, gotten my feet wet, and then gone back to it. Because I swear, like, for instance, community college wise, I ended up going back and getting like Rainbird certification at a local place in Memphis that I was at. And it was so fun like how much more engaged I was then versus when I was 18, right? Because I had field experience, and now getting to see the design side of it and understand why this goes here, why that functions that way, what my flow rates need to be, what my pressures need to be. It's like, oh, okay. And then I'm thinking about, some system I saw out there that is just leaving monumental gaps in coverage, right? That I can start putting together like, oh, all right, now I know not just how to fix it from the standpoint of like, oh, changing a head, changing a rotor or whatever, but it's like, now I need to make the modification that, I need to adjust my nozzle size right here in order to get, distance that's actually going to be able to reach that head. Or
Yeah.
why we need to close off this 360 in the middle of the yard because it makes no sense for it to be there with the nozzle it has in it, right? And so anyway, little things like that become more and more apparent. And so in my opinion and with my personality type, I think what you're doing is actually I wish more people would do it that way. And I think more people would have successful college careers, but even more so, I think they would get more fulfillment out of secondary education.
Well, I'll say this. I wouldn't change like what I'm doing now. The way I did it, I wouldn't change a single thing. Like you said, I feel like it's best if you go and work in the industry and you like when I tell you what I started off out as, it was a guy that helped the tech pull a hose. That's what I started out as. I helped him.
We all did. Yes.
Yeah, helped him pull a hose. Helped him. I reeled the hose back up, put the flag in the yard. Filled out the paperwork and watched. That's what I did. And I went from that to where I'm at now, and that's the way. And like I said, in my opinion, that's the way to do it because you start at the lowest point and you just build from there, and it makes school a lot easier. And I mean, it also makes it easier if you enjoy what you do and you have like a just complete OCD thing regarding everything regarding turfgrass. But if you can start as just the grunt and work your way up, you learn a lot of stuff as you go. So once you get to school, it's like, well, hey, I've already heard this, or I've been doing this for a couple of years, or for example. But it's just it is it's definitely the way to go. And like you said, I wouldn't change it one bit. I feel like if you went to school and then you started out in the industry after that, it would just be a complete culture shock because like you'd walk into a tech room and you'd hear people just like spouting off stuff and you'd have no idea what was going on and you just graduated from school.
That was my literal experience of when I walked into True Green and I was like, what in the world is going on? And then reality sets in that, I'm a number behind a badge right now and no one in here knows my name. And I've got to figure out how Hotshot Me is going to be known by name rather than a number. How can I become an asset rather than a liability? Where can I land on the P side of the profit and loss statement, right? How do I add value? How do I establish individual value, right? How can I stand out? And it's by, like you said, it's that obsession, right? You have to become obsessed and you have to become dedicated and you have to be motivated and you have to love what you do. And if all those things fall into place, then what I love specific about this industry is that it's an incredibly easy one to work your way up in, right? You talk about, starting out pulling hose. I don't forget, Chester was the guy I rode with first pulling hose, who was a 30-year tree shrub vet of True Green and had built a very nice career for himself and put 2 girls through college and had a nice life and a nice marriage and a nice house at 2 houses. And it was just an OG True Green guy, man. Ran a route every day, pulling hose, spraying trees and shrubs, and was probably one of the best tree shrub guys in the state of Tennessee, I'd argue. And I, and let me tell you, like, the kind of guy Chester was, right? And this definitely had one of those aha impact moments on me. Maybe not for the same reason, but it made me realize like how vested in what he did, how vested in what he did he was. Tragically, Chester collapsed on a yard spraying a yard, had lost all mobility from his waist down,
No.
called 911, and he was so advanced in his cancer that it had actually moved into his spine, and it was, it paralyzed him, right? It's as if he had a broken spine, and he lived for like a few days after that, and passed away really quickly, and hopefully painlessly in that. And but what it showed me was that, and there's going to be some people that say, you're an asshole. What kind of psychopath would give their life to a company or whatever. And it's not the fact that he gave his life to the company. It's the fact that um, he died doing what he loved, right? And he from the day I first worked there, where I was pulling hose from him, until the day he left the earth. The guy was always just showed me the most respect, only wanted to help, would answer any question I had, was the kind of guy that when you rode around with him on the truck would just point out stuff as you're driving by that only someone who had been doing this for 30 years would know how to do. And it inspired me to want to have that same level of passion and dedication and work ethic that he did. And that was one of those pivotal moments for me. And people talk shit about triggering all the time, and we can criticize them for whatever, the situations they get into. But I will say is that, if it weren't for that culture shock of going into it, and if it weren't for the people, and mind you, this is 2008, 2009, when the housing market crashed and everyone lost their job, and there was no job to get, and True Green was hiring, and so there was all these relatively new people that were not from the industry that were kind of showing up at the same time, right? And it's war at that point, survival of the fittest, and it's who can generate value the fastest, and being in that environment, and looking who had been there the longest and trying to mimic them, was pretty incredible. There's a long story to say is that, and it doesn't, if you're going to work for a landscape company or a spray company, if you can show initiative, even as a W-2 employee, there was always room to grow. And I feel like that the time to grow in this company in this industry is small, compared to a lot of other places where you may have to actually wait until someone your senior retires or dies before you get your next opportunity at moving up, right? Here it's passion goes so much further in this industry than even capability does. And part of that's just the state of the workforce right now. But the other part of it too is that I think there's, I would say 90% of business owners in this country recognize that passionate people just fucking care more, and those are the people that you want to protect and nurture and have on your side, and provide all the assistance in the world to, because they care about helping themselves. Therefore, I want to invest in you, helping you. And again, as a business owner perspective, I would hire 1,000 times right now passion over any other skill set that a human being has.
Well, I'll say this,
like everything else.
I found, you could call it a hack, like if it makes any sense, but I found from the first day I started doing at the previous company I had worked for, the first day I was there, I kind of figured out, like, just from being around people, not many people completely care about what they do. It's just a 9 to 5. So they just show up, or not really a 9 to 5 in this industry. It's like 6 to 3 or 6 to 4, but they just show up, they do their job, and they go home, and that's it. And I figured out real early on that if you can put 1% more of effort into your day-to-day operation, and you do that over every day, you will you'll exponentially grow faster than others. And and like I said, you can call it a hack, but once you kind of figure that out, if you just care just a little bit more than others, you can progress pretty quickly. And the nice part about, like what you said, the green industry, is that no matter if you're running a lawnmower, if you're pulling a hose, if you're on a machine. It doesn't matter. If you just care, you will automatically progress because there's not many people that care anymore. At least from what I've seen. Maybe it's just people my age, but if you just put in effort, I mean, you'll grow and you can pretty much do whatever you want. I've come to figure that out pretty quick, and I don't know. I don't know if it applies to your generation or not. I think it's just mine because most people are lazy, but yeah.
It's one of those things. Like my take on and Ray is obviously a different generation. Ray is Gen X through and through. The way I feel like with the people that I've worked with through my career is, Gen X is probably the most rugged, hard ass people that are out there. Millennials, especially the later millennials, you've got the Zennials, which I would be kind of like mid Gen X and millennial, where computers and internet didn't really start showing up until like 6th grade, 7th grade. So we still had to do a lot of face-to-face interaction, but learned kind of the dark side of the internet pretty swift, right? Because we were the young keyboard warriors at the time, right? And then so kind of got a nice balance of both worlds. But the later end, is where you're starting to see the I'm not meaning to go here, but the products of the implementation of No Child Left Behind coming along, and
100% agree. 100% agree. Everybody's a winner.
Right, and you kind of see that work its way over to into the market, right? Where you have to adjust the way you talk, the way you structure challenges, and the way to encourage motivation. All of that kind of shifted, right? And so I would say, in terms of just absolute ruggedness, Gen X was the pinnacle. Millennial, is going to lose percentage points on top of that, and then Gen Z is going to lose percentage points on top of that. And so I think the trend is this way. I don't think it's a steep decline. I think the rhetoric of millennials are foobarred or Gen Z is foobarred, I think all that's hyperbolic. I don't. We're not going to approach that, and I think every prior generation says that about the next younger generation. And but at the same time, I don't think anybody would deny that hiring over the last 10 years has gotten progressively weirder. And I mean that from the standpoint of trying to figure out the strategies of turning a B employee to an A employee, right? Especially when money is no longer the motivating factor, right? And I feel like as you stepped back in generations, money was the easier motivator than anything else. And then as you've moved over to the younger generations, it becomes more and more challenging because money is no longer the motivating factor, right? Sometimes it's going to be work-life balance. Sometimes it's going to be paid time off. Sometimes it's extracurricular benefits. Sometimes it's access to amenities on your corporate campus, right? And these are all things you hear. And I'm not saying it's because necessarily Gen Z is inherently lazy or whatever. I think the shift in the approach to want to capture Gen Z and later millennials is becoming more and more difficult, just because we all came from different perspectives, and trying to crack that code of when I will say this, when Ray and Ryan and I came up in this industry, I mean it was brutal. I mean it was as rough as it got. I mean, people made fun of you left and right, up and down, and you got your ass whooped, and they said horrific things about your girlfriend that you were dating at the time, or even when you were married. They said terrible things about your wife, and you got to laugh about it, and then you got to figure out how to joke back with them, and they'll threaten to kill your dog or whatever else. Or I saw a guy literally pour a bag of lime into a service manager's Jeep's gas tank one time. And it was really, he didn't like what the guy said to him, and so he poured an entire bag of lime into it and told him I did. He's like, I put just like to point out a bag of lime in your gas tank.
That was not specifically prohibited in the employee handbook. Therefore, we're good.
He did not get fired. He walked right in and he told Larry, he said, Larry, you can go F yourself. And to ensure that you're going to spend the rest of the night Fing yourself, I want you to know I put a 50-pound bag of lime in your fuel tank. Have a good night. And left. And Larry was like, what? And sure
where's
enough,
Chris Gibson when you need him?
did.
Damn it.
Hey, you know what? The lime is
too,
probably the least horrific thing I can think of.
Yeah, he said at least it
and
went
again,
sugar.
Yeah. Then again, no. I gotta tell you, Jason, I like the path that you're going on. Get yourself educated. Do not be what I call a Luddite. In other words, always strive for better. And the reason why I say this is because, as old as I am, I don't buy this statement of, just because this is how it's always done, that is the best way.
Thank you, Ray.
I'm always looking for actual efficiency. And to that example, whenever I hear somebody talk about rolling and unrolling hose, I gotta cringe a little. You know that?
Oh, Ray, I know you have an affinity for the Lesco gun and the 300 foot of 3/8 hose.
Kim Long gun is awesome. 400 feet of hose. It's the best.
I've sprayed many acres with it.
And the blue nozzle too.
Yeah.
The blue nozzle. I like the 3-gallon nozzle.
But then here,
green the white nozzle.
But
the white,
like I said, I'm actually about, as I said, actual efficiency, finding ways to get stuff done such that I'm not going to kill myself at the end of the day trying to do them. Because at the end of the day, nobody gives a fuck. I mean, you need to make it to the end of the day and wake up the next morning. Okay? Nobody gives a fuck.
Such an inspiring message, right?
But
it's true.
I saw someone on the internet one time. It was like a clip that came on, and it was one of those that said, "The market does not give a fuck about your feelings." And I was like, you know what? Now that I think about it, you're right. And the market's the market.
No, but that is
it does not give a fuck.
But that's absolute truth. And so, my other message is that what kind of distinguishes me from the boomers and the predecessors is what was ingrained in me is to always take care of yourself, because nobody else will take care of you and nobody gives a fuck. Okay? Nobody cares.
Okay. On that,
so you got to take care of yourself.
On that note of perseverance and self-determination, I guess my question would be, you've seen this, you've read these books. So from let's just say a work standpoint, what is the biggest either unknown or something that you're scared is maybe a strong term, but like, what are you most curious about, I guess, from a work standpoint? And then we'll talk about agronomics here in a little bit, but just going to work, getting a job, seeing yourself as a successful person in this industry, 10, 15 years, 20 years down the line, what is it that scares you or has you curious or worried? I don't know. Pick your own adjective, emotion.
What scares me? I'm trying to think. Or something that I don't know. I would say the one thing that that's a tough question, Ryan.
That's why I ask him.
Probably trying to think. I have a lot of fears. I do.
You and me both.
It'd probably be falling behind, and
falling behind seems really. Give me an example. No, it's not dumb.
I don't know.
Your fears are not dumb. Nobody's here to invalidate your fears.
Hell no.
So what do you mean by falling behind?
Well, like, to me, it's kind of hard because or not hard really, but there's so many people in the industry, at least in the town that I'm in, that I know that do this for a living, and they have 20, 30, 40 years on top of what I'm doing. And it's when I say falling behind, it kind of means like everybody is progressing and I'm progressing too. And sometimes I'd like to say I'm progressing more than them. Um, at the rate that they're currently progressing, if that makes any sense. But
Okay.
falling behind basically meaning like they're continuing to gain knowledge, and I'm just having to keep working and working and working and working to get to where they're at. And I don't know. Sometimes it does.
So sometimes what? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I didn't mean that. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. It's just sometimes I get a little overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that people come and try and get me to do, or and kind of things like that. And sometimes it gets to me a little bit.
They call that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, or like like one of the big things that kind of worries me. I'll go into like a chemical store, and it's not the one that I go into now, but it's like another one, and they'll look at me and they'll be like, "Oh, you're just 20 years old, or you're just 19 years old. You don't know what you're doing." Stuff like that.
Yes.
And so that bothers me sometimes, and I think I let it like over scare me a little bit because if I'm 20 years old now and everybody else is 40, 50, 60 years old doing this, what's it gonna be like when I'm 40, But then I don't know. It's just it's kind of weird, but
no, it's not weird. It's
not
real.
Weird.
Real feelings.
Not at all.
It bothers me. It really does irritate me. It irritates me a lot.
Then here's what I'm going to tell you.
First, Ray.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. You know what? Here's something that I've had to learn how to do over the years. Stop comparing myself to others.
Yeah.
Just stop it. Okay? Just stop it. I mean, and for me, it's about I don't care about what others are doing. I'm disinterested. What I care about is how do I do what I'm doing as best as I can? How do I do that? Never mind what everybody else. I mean, and in fact, I get really short and abrupt when anybody brings up what other people do. I get super short about that. And that it's like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. If you love them so much, go to them. Bye. I'm kind of one of those people where I'm not interested. And the other reason why I bring this up is because what you see about what others are doing is not the entire story. Because for all you know, the people that seem to be doing more, they seem to be successful, bullshit. Their life is actually a shit show. Okay? Their life is actually a shit show. They're just putting on a real good appearance.
Yeah.
And so be very careful about what you see and then comparing yourself to what you see at that moment or snapshot in time and then say, why am I not like that? Why don't I have that? Because what you see is not the whole story, yeah? It's not.
That is very true.
You don't know. And so and on this whole you being 20 years old and not knowing, again, don't feel that way because Jason, I literally know 60 and 65 years old people for whom I wonder, after dealing with them, how have you been in this business for so long and not know a damn thing? Okay, you don't know shit. I mean, your age has not made you learn anything because You're stuck on doing things the same way, the same time, and not improving or doing better. And oh, by the way, the reason why this age thing is kind of a sore subject with me is because I have the ability to perpetually look 20 years old. I shave all of this off, I'll look 20. Okay?
DeMay, let me hear your feelings on this, because boy, I've got all kinds of them. Because
I think
I live in a
okay.
constant state
Let
of
me just start here. Is that I think as I get older and I see more and more people that I know or see them from far away, things like that, that are either in this business or not in this business. I think this business of turf, whether you're in lawn, sports, golf, whatever, is a business of some of the most inspired, prideful, hardworking people that have an absolutely abysmal ability to define success of any industry out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I think that we try way too hard because we're so poor at that we just want to work. We just want to work. We want to learn. We want to do. But we never ever sit there and define success. And we sit there and start comparing ourselves. And then we say, well, this is what I don't have. This is what I don't know, or what I'm seeking or trying to find. And the funny thing is, and I'll say this, is that I've learned this about myself a lot in the last 10 years, is that the closer and closer you come, just like the quote we talked about last year, the bear thing, whether it's agronomic, whether it's professional, family stuff, whatever, the closer and closer you get to what you think that is, it either doesn't mean as much or it's just not there. So I think thinking about what you think is successful and writing that down every year. And I think when you talk about, you're so far behind, the other danger is thinking about all the things that you want to know and all those kind of things and writing all those out. I would focus more on your capacity and your ability to focus in on what's important, your capacity to learn and your ability to focus on what's important, right? Because if you always have the capacity of, hey, you know what, I'm going to go into this site one store or whatever, and I'm going to be curious because you know what, there is something I can learn if I walk in here. And it might just be that this guy across the counter is a fucking prick, but at least I've learned something, right? Okay. And so the other thing there from the capacity to learn, always going in curious, there's always something you can learn. The other thing there too is, like I said, is, if you can commit yourself to taking those opportunities and trying to learn something, you're going to be a lot better off for it. So I wouldn't say that you're behind. I wouldn't say that anything like that. You're just trying to rewrite a definition of success that doesn't exist, because you haven't wrote your own definition of success, what that looks like, right? So I think in shorter bursts, don't get too far ahead of yourself. And I will say that sports probably definitely more than lawn care. Lawn care, at least you can have a revenue goal, you can have something like that. Golf, there's a little bit of that too, but sports is a lonely fucking business when it comes to success, because the only thing you have really look forward to is maybe the off season, and the off season is getting a lot shorter for a lot of folks. So I don't know. I just think that you need to think about giving yourself that opportunity to learn, being curious, and don't worry about all this other stuff, right? But that ability to focus on what's important, that's a skill that you'll need over and over and over again. And especially if you ascend to a higher level position, responsibilities, whatever, you need that in spades, because your time and everything else will be limited. You got to have that ability to focus on what's important and discern, hey, this isn't important. I'm not going to focus on this right now. I got bigger things to do, more important things to do. So think about that. I'll listen to Matt now. I can't wait for Matt.
All right. So first things first,
Thank you,
if there's it's I think part of it is that Southern culture of respect your elders kind of thing. Of
fuck that.
Yeah, the number of times I've heard you say yes, sir, already. Exactly how I was raised. I know what it's like to walk into a site one and it's a bunch of old heads in there, and I'm super uncomfortable because I'm the kid, right? And I know that they're like, who's this fucking kid in here? Why is he in here? Who does he work for? What's he buying? What does he know? He doesn't know a damn thing. And I start putting myself in that position, right? And then the cyclone starts, and then I'm spinning around the tornado, so to speak. A couple of things I learned to overcome that. And this goes back to when I was actually at Fairway Lawns, and I'll never forget having my manager listen to me arguing with someone on the phone over how adamant I was that I showed up at the property exactly when I was supposed to show up to the property. The guy was
It was the old man,
mostly,
wasn't it? I've heard
he
this
was
story
old as
before.
hell
Yeah, yeah.
and mostly blind, and I'm screaming at him that I'm going to I will pull cell phone records to show you. And I called you when I got to that property and nobody answered the phone. And, you know, he's like, don't do that. Just tell him to fuck off and hang up, you know, and you know, like, is it okay if I do that? And it's like, yes, do not take that shit. Like, that's unnecessary. It's not good for you. And you know, at the time I didn't think it was possible. Parlay that over where now I'm in site one and I'm trying to choose what I'm going to buy. And like one of the tricks I learned to help me overcome a lot of that anxiety that I get when I'm put in those situations was learning how to say no. And so what I would force myself to do is go into site one, look at products that I don't normally buy, and ask, you know, sales rep, you know, what does this do? What does this do? What does this do? And then at the end of it, when he goes for the close, is like, you know, well, which what do you think? You want to grab that one today? I said no, and very aggressively say no, and it would normally catch them off guard, and then, but for whatever reason, like just that emphasis of saying no and not beholden, and that I made a decision that that guy has no authority over, it put just that little extra chip on my shoulder that I needed to get through the rest of the day. The other thing I did is that when I was out in the field, I would go and still do. I go so hard when I'm in the field that if anybody works with me, anybody from the outside is watching me, that they are so freaked out at how hard I go from the moment I get to work until the moment I go home that it becomes overwhelming for other people. And it's overwhelming for me too. And I have to stay in this constant state of heightened panic. But I do to this day, I do that every day at work. And when you know, you hear about talking to people, you may hear me about even you know, the difficulty of finding, you know, the right person to work with. A lot of that is because of me. You know, when I go that nuts the entire time, not a lot of people want to work around that. It's like if that's what the owner of the company is doing, that means I'm expected to do that, and it's probably not going to be a good fit because that guy's a psychopath. But I carry that, and I want to carry that perception because, again, back to my True Green days, when I walked in and I thought, how am I going to differentiate myself amongst this sea of men? How am I going to stand out? How is the boy going to stand out as the leader among men at my age? And it was like, clearly, they're way ahead of me on knowledge, but you know what they don't have over me? Is that I'm fucking tougher than they are. I'll pull more fucking hose faster, sweat harder, sweat more, cry at the end of the day when I get home because it fucking sucked, but they don't have to know that. But I'll do that each and every day, 6 days a week, 14 hours a day. And no one in that company would ever have the balls to say that, you know, Matt just didn't have what it takes. At that point, that erases mistakes, that erases knowledge, that erases ability, because what it comes down to is that I took away from them anything that they could ever critique because I go harder than they do. And no one could possibly question that. No. And I won't leave anything on the table.
You got to work harder than everybody else.
And you have to. You have to. And it's in my opinion, and again, just for my personality type and my weird mental illness that I live in, is that I have to be that way. And that is the only thing that keeps me sane in those situations, is that when I walk into that building, especially once I got a little age on me, right? So the difference between me being in a site one at 24 and being in a site one at 28 is that now I've got 40 years of doing absolute insane, horrific shit in the field to make sure that I've got food on the table when I get home from work, kind of thing, right? Like it took 2 years in self-employment of having to do the worst of the worst to was it dog attacking you?
Not a bug on my table, dude.
Pit bulls coming after you.
I spray some bikes on
but
it.
leaving it all out there, it was so much easier because after a year of doing, after 2 years of doing it, to look those people in the eye and know and believe and understand that not a person in this room could do what I could do. They may know more than me. They may be better off than me. They may have more money than me. But gosh damn it, I'll work harder than every motherfucker in this room. Every motherfucker in this room. And it takes time, but eventually that will become the superseding aspect of your personality that will override the fear. That will exude the confidence that will exceed the anxiety of having to deal with those situations and worrying about where you are and worrying about your progress. Because again, it's one of those things, some people say, fake it till you make it kind of sort of deal. Right. And of course you'll hear some people say, work hard, don't work hard, work smart kind of thing. And I think, that applies to so many different personality types, right? But you have to find the right one for you. And again, for me, dealing with that kind of anxiety and that kind of worry and that kind of fear, I give the one thing that I know no one can ever take from me, and that's a work ethic that will make other people uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable, and that becomes my badge of honor.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. I mean, that's just what you have to do, because you know what? In this whole 20-year-old kid, persona of mine, do you know what my least favorite question is when I'm dealing with people, Jason? Do you know what ticks me off or triggers me? When I'm speaking to somebody about their lawn and landscape, and they ask me, okay, so when is the crew of people going to show up to do this? Do you know what goes through my mind at that point?
That you're going to fire them before you ever step on the yard?
Sometimes, or when I'm feeling magnanimous, I tell them, you know what? You're looking at the crew. This is it. Right here. This is it. I mean, because I think I have Napoleon syndrome. I don't have imposter syndrome.
I do too. And I'm 6'4", 200 pounds. It's weird.
No, I have Napoleon syndrome. I mean, that's my problem. I mean, because they told me, oh, but you're going to do this and you don't have a crew of people. It's like, oh, fudge no. It's like, no, this is it. I am it, and I'm going to get it done. I mean, and you know what? The people, over time, they realize, it's like, oh my God. It's like, you get this done by yourself, and there's no finger pointing. There's no passing the buck. I mean, buck stops with me. That's my mentality. Buck stops with me. The bullshit stops with me. All the nonsense ends with me. And that's just how I work. And I think too, like at age 20 something, I was already making the folks at Site One and Nutrient and Simplot and whatever fear me.
That wasn't until my late 20s, I would say.
No, they were already afraid of me. But by the time I was 22 or 23, they were afraid.
Yeah, that's like the one. The thing that right now, or not right now, the thing that really just gets me going, like, is just the chemical side of things. So like, I wish you could see, like, here in my, I have a notebook right here, just sitting here. I have 10, 15, 20 pages, just nothing but like every time I find a product or something, I'll write down the active, mode of action, just things like that. And that's like the one thing that has just like made me go crazy over the last like year. I try and take like a good bit of pride to walk into a chemical store and look at a product. And the game I play with myself is to like, walk up, and I don't look at the active. I just like to look at the trade name, and I try and spout it off as quick as I can. That and the mode of action, and that's what gets me. That's like the one thing that is just like the coolest thing in the world to me, And so like you said, when you walk into a store and you make people fear you, that's like I've had a couple times where that's happened, where I'll ask like some crazy intricate question and they'll kind of look at me like, "What, did you just ask that? Or did you mean to ask that? Or how did that just happen?" But it's definitely, I definitely get where you're coming from with that,
And you have to use that. You have to use those little victories to override the fears. However, you have to figure that out is going to be up to you, the person. But it's that kind of little victory that you've identified right there. You've got to let that fucking rank higher somehow in your brain. But the whole reason I work that hard is to be so tired at the end of the day. I'm too tired to worry about shit, right? Like, I would be up all night just worried about whatever it is, whatever decision I made, or even just shit that bothered me about horrific things I did when I was younger or whatever that I disappointed my family with this and it keeps me awake at night, right? Well, if I just ground my absolute dick into the dirt into where I'm too tired to think about it because I can't keep my eyes open, then I'm not thinking about it all night, right? And then I can go to sleep, and then I can get up the next day, shake out the cobwebs a little bit, and it's like, okay, I got to go grind at work again, and I get that opportunity to go into site one. I get nervous. There's people around, and maybe I talk to the guy on the counter in front of me and be like, man, I am seeing the holy shit out of buttonweed right now. What are you running on buttonweed? And I'll spend I put a little 2,4-D. I was like, oh god, 2,4-D. I was like, man, no fluoroxypyr in the tank, no spicing up.
Change up an MSM, man. That's the go-to.
I know. Oh yeah, you're a one season market, right? Yeah. You ever done? You ever tank mix Celsius and MSM? Kind of a wild ass mix there, man. But holy smokes, it dings the hell out of it. It does great for me.
And that's
shit like that. Let that be your
kind of stuff.
To override that fear.
Well, my problem is I don't say it. I just I keep it in my head, and so when they say something, I'll just kind of like go with it. And sometimes in the back of my head, I'll think like, man, this guy's kind of like a dumbass, or like, why is he saying this? This is not true.
You know what, Jason? I gotta stop you. I gotta stop you there too.
Yeah, what's that?
Because this tendency to hold things in and not say things.
I just don't want to be boastful or like know it all. That's
no, it's not boastful. It's not boastful, man. But then what I'm going to tell you about holding it in is, let me explain to you. Holding things in is self-destructive. It's going to eat you up inside, and it's going to come out in ways that will negatively affect your life. Okay? In other words, if something's wrong, if you know something is wrong, and if you know you're right, it is not humble to sit on that and let somebody else be wrong. Because you see, there is nothing special about or privileged about being wrong or being ignorant. There ain't nothing privileged about it, okay? You understand? It's like, if you are right, you are right. And that is not being boastful or arrogant. That's just how it is. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because, I was raised to not say anything. You know that? I was raised to not say a damn thing, and to just go along, and to always, respect the various hierarchies and ranks and all that other bullshit. But you know what? That is what is wrong with this world. People stuck on hierarchies, ranks, and the past, and precedents, and whatever, even though all of that is dead wrong. And so if something is not right, I'm not going to feel horrible about, saying something, and I will not. And there's times when, again, I will just say it. I don't care about what somebody else does or thinks because they are dead wrong. I don't care. Get out of here with that.
Jacob said a couple of good points. He's saying right now it's okay to not be confrontational until it's time to be confrontational. And I can tell you that, like, when I was younger, it was real easy for me to be quiet and just like hear him. Oh yeah, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, and I may even call a friend afterwards and be like, "This moron that I just ran into is something extra."
I do that all. Yeah.
The older I get, the more problematic it becomes because I don't know how to shut up. There's no one that ever critiques me by saying, "Matt, you don't share your mind enough." It's always Matt, you need to learn how to shut up at some point. And so finding that balance, I think, is just kind of an aspect of life that you're going to run into.
Yeah.
DeMay, it's especially coming up in golf specifically, like you did. This is the other thing. Sports turf, the importance of the team aspect. Jason, did you play team sports?
I did, yeah. Soccer and basketball.
The malleability to preserve the team. DeMay, talk to me about that coming up in golf.
Of performing in a team environment?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, shit.
Coachability, I think, malleability. I'm kind of using all this interchangeable.
Yeah. I mean, I think two things. One, lawn care is the only discipline within turfgrass management with which you can do it all by yourself if you choose. It pretty much any other level, golf or sports turf, by and large, 99% of the situations, you cannot do it alone, right? So from a younger person's perspective, you have to learn how to function in an environment like that. And I think, the big thing, especially in sports and golf, that you can get caught up in, and it's very important to think about this, is there are a lot of big name places, right, that you can go. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those places, but I would caution anybody, Jason, you included, that people with whom you associate, work for, learn from are more important than the places that you may go and that you may have on your resume. So think about that as you take your journey and think about how you get out of the gate with this career, that people before places. I think that's a really, really important thing, because those people are ultimately who are going to drive you, motivate you, make you want to do better, make you do things that I think back in my career, and granted, I've got a long way to go, but I've worked for some awesome people, not at places that are all on the map or anything like that, but that wasn't the point. The point is to learn from good people, be pushed, right, be coached hard. And man, I can say that it's like I when I was your age, didn't know how I responded best or what type of coaching or any of that stuff. I didn't play a lot of team sports growing up. I wasn't that type of person. And so as I got higher and higher, within this business, I got coached harder and harder and harder. And the last boss I had, before I became completely unemployable, which is great, by the way. There is no greater or tougher boss to work for than yourself, because you were always tougher on yourself than anybody else will ever be. But
no one hates me like I hate me.
The last boss I had, though, was probably the hardest I've ever been coached by somebody else in my life, and it made me have a ton of confidence that I would not have had otherwise. So the point there is not about me. The point is about you. Is find those people, and when you go look for a job and you go sit down with an interview, it is a two-way street, especially nowadays.
Yes.
But have that conversation, ask them tough questions. I asked you tough questions because I want to learn about you. I don't care if you can drive a fucking sprayer. I'll teach you how to drive a sprayer. I'll teach you how to calibrate. I'll teach you how to do all that shit. I want to know who you are as a person, as a man, what drives you, what's going to make you get up out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to come start a 12-game homestand. Because guess what? We just had Taylor Swift in here and we were lifting fucking flooring off the field till 4 a.m. And guess what? 8 a.m. time to get out there and water the skin because the boys are back in town and they want to do fucking early hitting, on the field. It's the way it is. Like, is what's going to get, the gumption, give you the gumption to get up and do something like that. So it's just, like I said, the coachability part is huge, but the person that it's coming from is even more important, because if you don't mesh with that person, if you haven't aligned with that person, and you don't trust that person, right? It's easy to get pissed off. I mean, there's so many times with all my bosses, but two in particular that I can think of that I would get pissed off at them all the time, right? But then when I cool down, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to either shut up and do it, and I'm going to learn from it. And maybe I don't realize it right now, but I think those experiences are important. So, in the era of, people that don't give notice, or either the transfer portal and all this other shit where it's easy to quit.
Quiet quitting.
I would say, yeah, quiet quitting. I would challenge you to find somebody, and even when it gets really tough, especially when it gets real tough, fucking dig in. Fucking dig in.
Yeah.
Now, one more thing real quick before I'm not jumping off. I'm not going bye-bye or anything, but I do want to say something. I have a question for you real quick. How do you learn best? Reading, doing, like, rank these for me. Reading, watching a video, listening to a podcast, or being shown and doing it. Let me rank those 4 things for me in order of how you learn best.
Can all of it be an answer? Because
yeah, no, all of it can be. So I want to know, is reading number 1 or number 4? Is podcast number 2 or number 4? You rank them for you.
I'd say, and I'm not trying to be like generic on my answer, but they're pretty much all one to me, because and the reason I say that is because if it's something I am just super into, it doesn't matter how the information is conveyed to me. As long as I'm into it, I'll pick it up. Whether, like you said, whether it's reading a podcast, watching a video, doing it, being shown how to do something.
Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Let me take it a step further. Would you rather read something to learn it and then go out and say, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to figure out how to apply these concepts, right, into what I've just read, and process that and put it all together, right? Or would you rather go do something and be like, okay, I've done this, but I don't know all the science behind it or understand all the pieces and parts that go into it. I'm going to try to unpack this from what I've seen and what I've done. Which one of those is more akin to your ideal learning style?
Probably reading. Reading, okay. Definitely, for sure. I got a ton of books and stuff. I just read. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so here's the thing. I could have easily just said, "Fuck it, we're going to do this," but the consultant in me had to ask the questions and make you say it so everybody else could hear it. That's what I get paid gobs and gobs of money to do every single fucking day.
I love this exercise. I'm so into it right now. I'm going through it too.
How much money have we made on Super Chat so far? Anybody know?
$100.
More than that. More than that.
104.
Unless she needs to be cut off.
I got to pull up the.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do right now. For whatever we have right now and whatever we end up with at the end of the show, okay, whatever else everybody donates, we're going to double that. And instead of a scholarship right now, we're not ready for scholarship season. That's 3 months from now. That's in Louisville. But for right now, we're going to take all that money and we are going to buy and send Jason some of our favorite turf books so that Jason can sit down and dive in and learn all this shit and come talk our ear off in Louisville in a couple months. So whatever we make, we'll double it. If we get $250, we're going to buy him $500 worth of books. I've got a whole bunch of good ones here. I was just reading over and seeing if this one was any good. One of my favorites right here, Turfgrass Fungicides, Rick Latin. Great dude. Oh, you can't see any of that because it's all blocked out by the goddamn green screen. But there's some really, really good books. But textbooks are expensive. So look at that. Weed Science, Practices and Principles. Yeah, that's a good one.
That looks like a good
I'm going
book.
to get the Purdue.
This is a classic, and I'm going to show my age because this sucker is old. Ooh, 1991.
Man, that's before Rachel
1991.
Carson
I wouldn't be
wrote
booked
Silent
for 11
Spring.
more years.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Jesus
it's like 1991, and
holy
but
shit is
then
right.
Okay, even though it's old, the principles and the basic science is all there. I mean, and in fact, I've had other people ask me, okay, what should they start reading to understand why? And that's one of the books that I point at.
What the hell?
Get ready.
Got him.
Are you ready, Jason? Are you ready?
Got him. Got him.
It's a good thing I scored high on my English test in high school.
Good for you, man.
I am exactly like you.
Lushy.
I had a feeling that you were going to be like this. I'm exactly like you. I am a voracious reader, and I have to read as much as I can, and then go figure it out. Like if I try to go figure something out, I'm just like, I mean, I'm wasting my time. I'm tripping over stuff. But if I can put it together in my head, like so, there are way more books than we'll have money for, but we can get you started with a good starter library, of some really good books. There's a Sports Fields book. It's by Mike Goatley out of Virginia Tech. That's probably the premier text on that. Turfgrass Chemical and Soil Problems is the Bible on everything to do with fertility. We'll definitely get you the Ricky Waddington and Caro book. You've already got Kaminsky's book and Al Turgeon's book.
Already.
The Purdue Professional Weed Control for Turfgrass Professionals by Purdue is a fantastic text, and it's part textbook, part it's got all the chemicals, all the labels, all the modes of action for herbicides. You will love that book. You will probably dive right in. That's a great one to keep in the crapper and just kind of leaf through a little bit. When you're doing your business. It also comes in PDF, so if you want to search through it, it's good. Lots of good books. So again, for the folks,
we got to get a subscription to a journal too. A good.
Oh, you don't need to do that.
He can go through.
I have a journal thing or not. I have a scholarly membership through school that I can look up.
I was going to say
anything.
If he's at Penn State, he can go through the library. And anybody else that's interested in that, like if you want to get on access, if you want to access Wiley online or any of the other ones, highly recommend just go get a library card. And pretty much if you have a library card, you can go through EBSCOhost or WorldHost and get pretty much any journal article you ever want to get. And for all of you folks that can't get access to a paper or something like that, I would say 90% of the time, if you email the author, they'll be like, yeah, here, take it. Go for it. Fuck those people that want you to pay $40 for it. Holy shit. God damn it, Lushy.
Thank you,
He's had a couple BS. He's going to go back, look at it's going to be like the day after the strip club, and he's going to go back and look at their credit card statement and be like, ooh, that's a lot of books.
It's for the kids.
Do the impression.
Yeah. Hey, how many Turfgrass textbooks can we stick in a stripper's ass crack, you think? Gotta be 4 or 5.
It depends on which club we're at. If we're at the Emerald Club by my house, it's a solid 10.
I think we got to go where Aaron Gillespie is and go to the Fuzzy Hole over there in Johnson City.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get one in there. There's a lot of meth running around that place. You're dealing with toothpicks and.
Right, let's get back on topic here.
We could fit 10 in the thigh gap.
So. All right, let's talk agronomics here for a minute. Just talk grass, just pure grass. No more career stuff, everything like that. We played that out.
I love grass.
What? Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, shit. Let's just start. What's your favorite grass? Like if I had to say,
I'm a Bermuda grass all the way.
Hey.
Oh
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's plain Jane. He's a meat and potatoes guy. You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Meat and potatoes guy.
I can put whatever I want on it. I don't have to worry about anything.
Literally,
and just
quite literally.
I can't kill it. I haven't figured it out. Well, hold on. Common Bermuda grass probably goes Myers, Zoysia, just good old. Last on the list, most definitely is St. Augustine. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And then, believe it or not, Centipede is actually probably third on the list because Centipede's, if you figure it out, Centipede is just simple. You just let it roll.
We were going so well until we got there. Speaking of, 1 second, I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, can you tease that, by the way? Tell them about that.
Yeah, and you actually had me going because like my grass tiers are slightly skewed in that Bermuda first, then Centipede, then St. Augustine, Zoysia's last. Zoysia's absolute last weird. On my. No, Zoysia is. It's not that it's weird. It's just that I consider Zoysia still very experimental for the United States at large. It's extremely experimental.
I'm glad Centipede came up.
Yeah, but
what's with all the hate on Centipede?
Yeah. I think it's because, let me just put it into a little perspective, Jason. The reason why I love Centipede is because that is the only grass I know of where the less you do to it, the better it performs. Okay? That's just how Centipede is, where 0.5 pound of nitrogen per year, no big deal. pH 5.5 soil, no problem. High manganese soil, no big deal. High aluminum soil, no big deal. And here's where people get it all screwed up with Centipede. They want to mow it high, and they want to feed the holy shit out of it.
Thank you.
And that's where it goes
Thank
wrong.
you for saying that. Thank you.
No, because here's how I've had good luck with Centipede. Do you know what my height of cut is on Centipede?
Any 1 inch is perfect to me, but what's your opinion?
5/8 to half.
Damn, Ray.
Yeah,
Ray goes hard.
When you look up extra in any quasi meaning of the word, you're going to see Ray's name to it. Just about every aspect.
Now, can I tell you what people do with Centipede grass down here? Can I make all of you cringe real quick?
Yes.
Matt's already cringing.
So so they start out with so we'll start like at a fall pre-emergent, right, for POA. They'll go out with spectacle for it hurts. It hurts. It's great for POA, but Centipede it's a little rough. So they got 6 ounce
it's terrible in Centipede.
Right?
Yeah.
They'll come back around. They'll hit it. You ready for this? They'll hit it with prodiamine. Okay. Most people around here, it's a full pound of prodiamine at a split rate, 50/50. Okay.
Yes.
And then you ready for what their fertility program is on Centipede down here? Cover your ears, Ray. Urea and MOP.
Yep.
It hurts my soul.
15 right out the back of the Helena or Hale's truck or wherever, and with 8% iron oxide in it. 15 8% iron or whatever it is. I can't remember the standard.
I've heard of that blend, but then do you know what's actually making me cringe, Jason? As far as Centipede goes, I don't want to see anything other than simazine, atrazine, and tenacity as the POA herbicides. I don't want to see spectacle on Centipede, and I sure as fudge don't want to see the full rate of prodiamine on Centipede not going into winter.
Ray, I can watch stolons. 2-foot stolons that are just laying on top of the ground. They can't even tag.
They're floating. They're not even sticking down in the soil, right? And you know what's doing that? That 6 ounce spectacle. 6 ounce spectacle is what I literally use when I need to create dirt. When I need an area to be dirt, I'll apply 6 ounce spectacle. It's dirt for 6 months. So
Don't look, my affinity or lack thereof. First off, this hat came from the Facebook group Centipede Lawn Care and Turf Sciences, and we were working on the logistics to do a special dedicated show with these guys. They're awesome. They're all mostly psychopathic masochists. Anyone that would willingly grow Centipede has to be a masochist of a high degree. Anyway, so we're working that out. We're gonna have them on. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I know how to kill Centipede really well. I'm not very effective at growing it, and so it is what it is. And I look forward to learning a lot in that one too. And like you talk about that program there. I mean, that's the old wives' tale that even I walked in. This again, I forget going to Augusta and being like entrenched with 50% of my market being Centipede, and I've never grown Centipede before, and I'd run across 1, 2, maybe 5 Centipede lawns in my life in Memphis, and maybe 1 or 2 in Huntsville. It didn't even see. I refused to go to the areas of Birmingham that had Centipede, so that was off my plate. So it hadn't really done. Now all of a sudden it makes up 50% of my market. Literally every other lawn I'm selling is Centipede, and I'm like, God Almighty, man, what do I do? And so this is one of those where I lean on my suppliers, right? Because I know that at least they'll get me started in the right direction. And then you realize that when you talk to your suppliers, that even when they come at you with a high degree of confidence, that there's still a certain shakiness in their voice when they're saying it. And you're like, wait a second, he's not confident in what he's telling me. I can smell it from here. And so I really felt like I was thrown to the wolves on that. And then, of course, this is also coming out of a major ice storm that brought down 50% of the pine trees in the area that winter, and nothing. I would say 50% of the Centipede lawns greened up too, and so it was a constant losing battle, and I've made plenty of pendimethalin mistakes on it. Applying the 005 pendimethalin.
Oh man,
you name it, I have done it, and it's embarrassing and it's terrible, and I've got the mental images and the sleepless nights worrying about it to live through. But the further I got along into it, and after you kill enough of them, you kind of figure out at least what not to do, right? And then you can start putting together the pieces of what to do. It is what it is. But
you kind of start learning, don't you, Matt? You kind of start learning, right?
Yeah,
and it's basically whatever the supplier tells you to do, tell them no firmly. Yeah. Firmly tell them no, because I remember having a conversation with a guy, starting back in 2007 on what to do and not to do on Centipede, and he was in the Southeast as well, and we became good friends, and he agreed with me. Don't do whatever the guys at Site One or whatever are telling you to throw on Centipede, because you're going to kill it. Starting with that Southern Lawn Special, that's, what is that, 15015? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And next off is the pre-emergent that you're able to use on Zoysia or Bermuda is fatal to Centipede. Okay, it'll kill it fast. And by the way, if you dislike St. Augustine, it's because St. Augustine has a similar reaction to that set of herbicides. High rates of prodiamine and high rates of spectacle are rapidly fatal to St. Augustine as well. So that might be why. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
I'll say the 15015 mix. There's 2 at least in my area. So we have a Site One, and then the chemical rep I go to now, which I absolutely love them. I don't know, Matt, if you've ever heard of them from being down this way. Triangle.
Triangle.
Yeah. Who's your rep at Triangle?
So right now it's Brian. He's the just like the head manager where we're at now. But so down here, at least there's two different 15015s. Site 1 is the one that carries the one with urea and MOP, but the one I'm using right now is pretty good. I think it's Nutrite is who makes it. It's pretty simple. It's AMS, SOP, and just it's got a little bit of micros in it, not a whole lot, but I mean it's a good mix and it does a pretty good job. But I think a lot of people get carried away. They'll go out there and throw a pound of in on it, and it just it doesn't like it. Well, and I found too, it'll look pretty good that first year you do it, it'll take it, and then the second year, and the third year, and the fourth year, and consecutively, it just
Decline
keeps
City,
worse.
right? Decline
it just
City
starts to
because
suggest even worse.
Yeah, it just dies because like my go-to on Centipede has always been 13-0-45 plus chelated micronutrients.
Yeah.
That's been my goal. And what I also know about Centipede and a lot of other grasses is when fertilizing them, I'm not fertilizing them to make them greener. I'm fertilizing them only to promote growth as needed to fill in from damage or whatever. It is not to make it greener. I mean, that's the other
grass now.
Yeah, that's the thing about dealing with grass is remember, you do not put down nitrogen for color. You're putting down nitrogen to promote growth and fill in. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people in the industry and even lay people get sideways. They're using nitrogen for color. And that gets them into worlds of trouble, especially when you're dealing with other grasses, because the other grass that'll get you into big trouble with that is don't ever do that to Zoysia. Where you're throwing down nitrogen to make that grass greener. Do not go there. Because
I learned that from you, right?
You'll see a similar decline process happen where it's okay for a little while and then you're wondering, why is this lawn always getting diseased? Why has this lawn got an epic amount of thatch? Why am I having problems? And it all goes back to utilizing nitrogen to make Zoysia greener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the people that go out, and I'm sure there's scientific evidence to back this up. But at least in this area, I mean, hell, it's probably like this all throughout the country. But at least I've noticed the later in the season with zoysia grass, the more in that you put down on it, just the higher chances of that you're going to get fatal amounts of large patch in the fall.
Problems, right? Right.
Yeah.
Because
it seems like the more in later in the fall is a direct correlation to large patch.
Okay, because like what I try to do or suggest to people is 45 to 60 days after, before the zoysia slows down in growth due to, the arrival of winter, 60 days before that is when that's the absolute last time you put down in, and that in had better not be any slow release stuff. It should be one more for late summer, and then it's time to put this to bed. Right? I mean, because I've seen it for myself where I've had people throw down something like a high nitrogen lawn fertilizer on their lawn in October or November, and then I get the panicked, freaked out phone call. How come my zoysia sod is just checking out and turning brown in spots on me? And I ask them, oh, so when's the last time you fertilized and what did you use? And they tell me, and then you know what I tell them, Jason?
What?
Get a bulldozer. You're done. Get a bulldozer. That's it.
Nothing extra about that. We're just,
we're just gonna pull let's get a D6 in here and let's take care of this for you.
Yeah, let's just take care of this one time, right?
It's 10:45. Ask questions. What do you got? What do you want to know? You can ask me personal questions. You can ask us grass questions. Whatever you want.
So I have a little list. We can go rapid fire. I don't know how you want to do it.
How you
just shoot them out there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. This is for Matt. Last like 2 weeks, I've kind of gone super in depth into iron sources, specifically chelated iron sources like EDTA, EDDHA, things like that. Give me the rundown, because I can't really find a whole lot out there that is pertaining to turfgrass. Give me the rundown. Like, just start. I don't care like how you do it. Just start spitting. Let me know.
Okay, so the 3 things anyone should consider when spraying iron is iron sulfate. Well, I'll say 2. Iron sulfate or some derivative of a chelated iron, right? And so the most popular ones that we're going to see out there is going to be a glucoheptanate. You're going to see an
That's
EDTA,
the other one, yes.
and then you're going to see an EDDHA, and those are all 3 different types of chelates that you run into. Now, you can get into complexes where you'll see ferrous sulfate and amino acids. That is a complex. Sometimes they'll call it a chelate. The chelate's rather mild, so it's difficult to say that. In some more bizarre circles, you'll see like DPTA. You'll see glycinate, we'll just stick to that. So typically what each of those chelates are going to do will influence the pH at which the iron will remain in solution, right? So actually dissolved. And the easiest thing to think about when I'm talking about dissolved is like if you take salt and dissolve it in water, and the water is clear once it's fully dissolved, right? That means it went into solution. A suspension would be, say you took like silica dioxide and you put it in water and you shook it up and the water's cloudy, where it's suspended in the water, right? What's important is that because plants take up nutrients by drinking the water that it's dissolved in, right? So whether we apply urea, we rely on it to become dissolved. And then the plant is able to take it up as it takes up water. Same thing with the relationship between microbial mineralization and water, right? They're releasing little bits of ammonia that are stable in soil and water and allows it to be taken up in the plant. Plants do not eat solids, right? If in order to get a solid into a plant, now we're talking about the nanoscale, and that's a whole different side subject. Okay. That being said, the different chelates will influence at what pH it will remain in solution, dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, ferrous sulfate, the closer you get to a pH of 6, the faster it is going to fall out of solution, right? So, typically, like the thing to do if you're going to be ferrous sulfate in and of itself is rather acidic when you dissolve it into water. And so typically that's enough to keep it in solution, is just the acidity that comes from dissolving it in water. Sometimes you have to buffer your tank with an acid to maintain solubility, and it's fine to spray that if you're applying it foliarly, right? So you want to make a foliar application, let it sit on the leaves until it's able to take up what it can take up, and then rinse it off the leaf blade, right? But what you're limited to there is how much the plant can take up through the leaf. And that's going to be balancing the salts between the outer surface of the leaf and the inner surface of the leaf, and that's how that osmotic take up ends up occurring, right? So for foliar applications, 100% you can do it with ferrous sulfate. It's great. If you want to get the rest of it that is not taken up through the leaf into the plant, chances are, if it's ferrous sulfate, it will oxidize quickly. And what I mean by oxidize is that it will no longer be a sulfate molecule. Therefore, it'll become a ferrous oxide, which is also known as rust. And that is a solid. Rust does not dissolve in water. You can put rust in water and shake it up and it will turn orange, right? But if you let it sit, you'll notice all that orange will settle to the bottom because it can become suspended in water, but it's not going to dissolve in water. Well, same thing. It comes into the soil. It turns into ferrous oxide because it's going to react with different things in the soil, whether it's phosphorus in the soil or carbonates in the soil or calcium in the soil. It becomes insoluble. At that point, you have to wait for the plant through root exudates to be able to get it into the plant. So it's going to be a real long, drawn out process. And typically, if you're applying iron, you want a quick, immediate response, right? You're going to get it from what's taken up in the leaf, but it's not going to be 100% efficient, right? Okay, now you're like, all right, so how do I improve the efficiency? How is more of that iron I apply that doesn't make it to the leaf end up getting taken up by the root, right? Well, this is where chelates come into play. EDTA is going to protect that molecule to a little bit higher pH. It's going to protect your ferric iron to a higher pH and keep it in solution at a higher pH. Here,
isn't
you start getting closer to, huh?
Isn't it like 6.5?
Yes, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And so you get up to 6 with sulfates. It's it's going to start dropping out. You get up to 6.5, even 7 with EDTA. It's going to start dropping out. But from that time period, and what you'll notice too is that chelate is actually going to delay a little bit of that time. So your soil pH maybe we'll say 6.6, so slightly out of the norm for it. But that conversion of a soluble iron EDTA into an insoluble iron, whatever it ends up reacting with, we'll say it's iron carbonate in this instance. That time period at which it moves over to it is going to be relatively slower compared to your ferrous sulfate that you applied. Therefore, you're still going to be able to get some root uptake. Then we start moving into more complex chelates, stronger chelates, right? So like EDDHA. Now all of a sudden you're expanding that pH solution all the way up to about 9, right? So if you have a soil pH that's 6.6 and you choose to apply EDDHA iron, it's going to be protected for a really long time in your soil, and in fact, right, an extremely long time. And so you have a greater opportunity for the majority of that iron you apply making its way into the plant, right? Before it drops out of solution into a solid. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind, right? And I think it's important to go ahead and be transparent about all this. EDTA, EDDHA are extremely long-lasting chelates. So the issue that can happen with it is that sometimes it can chelate things that you don't want it to chelate, right? So now all of a sudden it may chelate lead, or it may chelate arsenic, and all of a sudden that gets into the plant a little bit easier too, right? So and that's not to say that you should never use it. It's just something that you could keep in the back of your mind, that if you get a wild hair up your ass that, oh, I need to go spray EDTA iron every week, every 7 days, you probably don't. You probably don't. You're probably going to end up causing more problems than you are actually, winning on the backside of that, right? Now, here's the other thing too, and I want to make this extremely clear too, is that typically complexes and non-chelated forms of iron, usually, for the most part, are going to be faster to respond than your traditional chemical chelates like EDTA and EDDHA. And the reason why is going to have to do with the size of the molecule, right? And therefore, the less complex the molecule, the more that can typically move through the leaf. And so that's why you'll typically get a faster response from just an iron sulfate versus an EDTA iron. You're going to get less that moves through the leaf with EDTA iron, more that makes it up through the root. Therefore, you've got that time delay before you get the influence of the iron in terms of visual impact. Same with EDDHA, right? That is an iron 3 molecule. It's a ferric molecule. And the way you manufacture it is that you have to take ferrous sulfate and react it to an insoluble form. You can do it with potassium hydroxide. You can do it with a chloride. Ferric chloride is not going to be soluble. Ferric oxide is not soluble. And then you have to use that chelate to bring it back into solution, right? And so from a manufacturing standpoint, now you've got an iron 3 molecule. So it's a larger molecule. Therefore, it's slightly more difficult to get into the plant through the leaf surface. So complexes with amino acids, straight ferrous sulfate, you're going to get a faster visual response. Glucoheptanate is an iron 3 as well, but it is a very, very short-lived chelate, right? And what I mean by that is that it's not a very strong chelate, so you can apply it for a very short period of time, half a day, whatever. It will be available up to a pH of roughly 9 as well, but relatively quickly that is going to oxidize as well too. The byproduct of the degradation of that is that glucoheptanate is a sugar, right? So in terms of if there's any kind of concern of applying a long-lasting chelate like EDTA or EDHA, either that just be due to years and years of repetition, or you have like an issue with aluminum in your soil for whatever reason, and you learn that the hard way, and you have to be careful with using EDTAs or EDHAs, then you can go with a glucoheptanate alternative if you need to use a chelated source. If you don't need a chelated source because you're making a foliar application, and a 2-week, 3-week color response is good for you, then even save the money and just do a complex or straight ferrous sulfate as well too. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted. Okay. That's what I wanted. Okay, well, I guess we'll bounce to the next one.
No, we're fine. We're good.
Was that enough information?
Ray,
did I leave anything out? I feel like I left a bunch out.
More.
Give me the rundown, Ray, on surfactants, because I sometimes find myself getting a little overwhelmed, because I think this is something, and I'll just say this, I think this is something that not many people put a lot of emphasis on, is proper surfactant selection. I think people just get wrapped up into the whole, well, I'm going to apply this herbicide, or I'm going to apply this X material, and then they wonder why it didn't work. And so sometimes I find myself getting a little confused on whether I want to use a NIS or an organosilicon or a MSO. Can you explain to me, like, in which, where are those advantageous for what application, if that makes any sense?
Sure. Let me try to help. Okay, first of all, understand that a non-ionic surfactant is essentially what is called a wetting and a spreading agent, right? So what that non-ionic surfactant does is it chemically reduces the surface tension of the water, so then when you're spraying over the turf and that droplet of spray hits the leaf, that droplet of spray, because of its reduced surface tension, has the ability to then spread out over and uniformly wet that leaf. That's what a non-ionic surfactant does, no more, no less. You mentioned organosilicone surfactants, right? Now, those act in a way similar to a non-ionic surfactant, except here's what silicone does to a spray solution. It literally makes the surface tension of that spray solution so low that your spray droplet on the leaf then has the ability to spread out so thin that the drying on that is just like lightning fast. It's quick. However, Jason, here's where there's a problem, in that, for a lot of your herbicides, what the herbicide wants and needs is literally more time on that weed leaf wet, because the longer it stays wet on that weed leaf, the more effectively that weed will absorb your application. And that takes me to another category of surfactant or adjuvant that you may have heard of, called methylated seed oil. And methylated seed oil takes care of the wetting and spreading, but then methylated seed oil has another property because of the extremely high solvent power of methylated seed oil. Because do you know how methylated seed oil is even made? It's a neat process. It's a real neat process because methylated seed oil is made by reacting vegetable oil with methyl alcohol with a sodium hydroxide catalyst. And what that does is that then alters the chemical properties of that vegetable oil such that now you have a material that's a very good solvent for organic compounds. And when I say organic compounds, I mean things like, say you've got some quinclorac, or say you've got some sulfonylurea herbicides for broadleaf weeds or nutsedge. Then what literally will happen is that methylated seed oil will take that herbicide in your tank, partition it into the oil droplets, emulsified in that tank. But then when you spray it on the weed, then that emulsified oil containing the herbicide then wets the leaf. And because that methylated seed oil is also an excellent solvent, the waxy, hard layer on the leaf is then rapidly dissolved and penetrated through, superior to that of a regular non-ionic surfactant in many cases. And
now, I have a. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, because I understand, like with urea and ammonium sulfate, like they're used as adjuvants and stuff like that. So is the reason behind that, and I've tried to research it, and I don't really get a real good answer. And the logic behind it is, so if I have like urea, something containing urea, like a urea fertilizer in my hopper, I notice like if it's really hot outside or it's humid, of course you go to dump it out or you go to get rid of it. The material leaves behind like a good bit of wetness.
If there's water out of the air, and Jason, that is a property to take advantage of.
That's what I was. That's where I was going.
Where I said a little bit earlier, where to your advantage to make it so that your spray stays wet on that weed leaf as long as it can, because, for example, say you've got some 3-way going, or else you got some glyphosate going. What happens if you added 1/10 of a pound of N per 1,000 square foot in the form of urea to your spray mix, and you apply it? And then there's one more little property in that foliarly available nitrogen then performs another function in that it tricks the weed because it's nitrogen. And so the weed will
uptake it. So
it'll open up and try to take it in, and whoops, small problem. There's herbicide in this too. Small problem. So, that's the purpose of urea. And the good thing about urea is that urea is neutral, because I'm going to go into another, additive that you may or may not have heard of, AMS, right? Ammonium sulfate. Now, ammonium sulfate performs a similar function, except ammonium sulfate in water is naturally mildly acidifying. So, here's where that's beneficial. A lot of your fungicides, a lot of your insecticides, glyphosate, and 3-way all benefit from being in a mildly acidic solution versus an alkaline solution, because those chemicals are subject to various interactions with even the water in your spray tank, including reactions with the calcium in the water, reactions with the other minerals in the water, and this other process called alkaline hydrolysis. And what alkaline hydrolysis is when, say, your water pH is over 7, that herbicide, insecticide, or fungicide literally starts to change and degrade as a molecule in your spray tank. And in some cases, that reaction can happen such that by the time you get out to spray the lawn, whatever you mixed is trash. It's garbage. Because that alkaline hydrolysis just took apart your active ingredient and basically made it no longer an effective product. So
Yeah,
that's where
I've had that. I've had that issue at our shop, like with our water. Our water pH is pretty acidic. So like if I go out with, like, for instance, like Certainty or something, you know, I've had that issue before where, you know,
okay, because here's the other problem. Conversely, notice how I left out things like MSM and Certainty or Sedgehammer or Revolver when I'm talking about using AMS. And that is because
sulfonylureas don't like low pH. They lose efficacy.
They don't,
right?
They don't like pH under 7. That's right. They hate pH under 7. And so, in fact, I'm thinking what may have to happen to deal with acidic water, and in fact, the manufacturer sometimes recommends this, is that it may be necessary for you to add what's called ammonium hydroxide to your spray tank to get that water pH back up to 7. And because when your water pH is back up to 7, then you're not dealing with this issue of acid hydrolysis and loss of solubility of your sulfonylurea herbicides, because there's literally two bad things that happen to sulfonylureas in acidic water, in that, number one, there's acid hydrolysis happening, and number two, these herbicides are very dependent on dissolving in the water that you're spraying with, and then evenly coating and then penetrating, your subject weeds. So if you're hydrolyzed and if you're not, soluble in water, then I guess that's a less than effective application. And so likewise, I want to kind of talk about one more type of surfactant that I frequently use, because I have the opposite problem in that my water pH coming out of my water supply is like 7.5. And there's a lot of insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, etc., that don't want pH 7.5 water. And so I use this product called LI 700. And that is a non-ionic surfactant combined with an acidifying agent, to where if I throw in a quart of that per 100 gallons, I can take my 7.5 pH water back down to 5.5. And so my product stopped degrading. And in fact, I had a hard lesson one time, because I was spraying for insects at a nursery, right? And I didn't use that acidifying surfactant, and I was applying orthene, which is, an organophosphate insecticide. However, the nursery owner calls me back and says, "Hey, Ray, the application you made might not have worked because the aphids are still alive. They didn't die. Where normally orthene on aphids is, dead." Like that. So the problem is that alkaline water just trashed my application. So that's a lot to consider. And in fact, I think a useful tool is, in addition to reading your labels, have a little $50 pH pen handy. They don't cost that much anymore. Yeah, and that's how you know about your shop water then. But and then you go look at your product labels, right? And they'll tell you, do not put this product into acidic solutions, or likewise, some products say avoid tank mixing with alkaline materials. And that's your sign as to what you got to do to ensure that your application is as effective as it can possibly be, right? So, but then here's the thing, is that I know a lot of products will tell you use a non-ionic surfactant. And especially with the herbicides. And do you know why they're saying to do that?
Lessen burn, tip burn.
Yeah. Well, less chance for total burn, because you see, here's what I notice in the industry. I have all of these monkeys. They take the jug of surfactant and they just go glug glug. Okay? In the tank. Whereas I always understand a surfactant, application as, okay, they're calling for so many ounces or so many quarts per 100 gallons. So I think they want me to measure that stuff, don't they? Or they suggest a percentage within that spray solution, like 1 gallon per 100 gallon or half gallon per 100 gallon, whatever the case may be. And so they want you to measure, because like I catch a lot of hell because I tank mix products like Certainty or MSM with methylated seed oil. People give me a lot of hell about that. They say, oh no, you're going to burn the hell out of the grass. What are you doing, Ray? It's like, no, I'm not. It's because I measure my surfactant. And I also use a little bit of sense too, because I think about what's my prevailing weather conditions. And I just told you it's almost 90 degrees most of the year here. So you know what that means for me? When I add something like methylated seed oil, I keep it at that half a gallon per 100 gallon concentration. I kind of keep it there. On the other hand, should I be blessed with being able to make that application in cooler weather, by all means, I crank that thing up to the full gallon per 100. Send it, But it's all about having some sense and being aware that your surfactant will affect how your product works. And that leads me to my next point. Did you know that some of my findings on Celsius and using Celsius literally became a white paper put out by Bayer?
Explain.
What?
Yes, because I was doing some beta testing with Celsius, and I told back then the technical guy there was Lawrence Mudge, and I shared with him that I said, okay, I can use Celsius with 0.5% or 1% methylated seed oil. However, this tank mix must never be spot sprayed, because you'll burn a hole in the turf. It has to be broadcast. Secondly, once it goes much over 90 degrees, if you do want to add a surfactant, it has to be non-ionic surfactant at no more than a quart per 100 gallons of solution, or else, again, you're going to burn holes in the turf. And of course, you don't spot spray that. And lo and behold, soon after I shared this became a white paper issued by Bayer.
Mr. Genius.
Yeah. So, any other questions or pick my brain regarding surfactants?
You covered it really well. I mean, we went full circle on that. I mean, I started my whole statement just off by, I feel like it's a important piece of any application conversation, and you came full circle around to that, so that was perfect. Thank you. Right.
I hope I could help. I hope I could help. I mean,
you always help, man. You're the man. I'm gonna go full circle, and we'll go to Ryan real quick.
He's on the hot seat now.
Yeah. Yes. We'll go to Ryan. I'm as you know, Wilmington, North Carolina. We have no cool season. It's all warm seasons. Yeah, all warm season C4 grasses. But the question for you, I get a lot. Actually, last semester, and I believe it was Turf 235. One of the essays I had to write was regarding sports turf. And it was picking a specific turf grass and why you would pick it. And when I did it, I wasn't really. I know you're big into Bermuda grass, and then I've heard a lot of things about bluegrass in sports fields. Explain the difference, because I know where you're at in Ohio, you can grow either one. So, like, what would be the reason why you would want to? Well,
I know what you mean. No,
you can do it.
You can. You can do it most years. This is the year that that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, why would you pick bluegrass over Bermuda grass, and then when would you pick Bermuda grass over bluegrass, if that makes any sense? Like, what would?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a great question. I mean, for you, I was actually having a conversation today. Granted, different level altogether, but Georgia Tech, so even further south than you, Georgia Tech's baseball field is bluegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, mowed at 5/8 of an inch, even in the summer. Right now, it's mowed at 5/8. So it's doable. I mean, he probably, I'm sure he gets beat up. Chris down there probably gets beat up for growing that, and there's people saying, well, hey, why are you doing that? Just like there's people up here that are looking at Bermuda grass and saying, why are you doing that? So to your point, I got a whole 20-minute video somewhere buried on my Field Source account. I got to see if I can find this, and I'll send you a link to it and you can watch it. But I did this a long time ago, I think. Where's it?
Oh, wait, was it the case study video that you did?
Jesus, how do you know this?
I'm telling you, I've watched every video that you guys.
The only people that have watched it, somebody in Bulgaria, because they're our number one country. We're like number 6 in Bulgaria, and my mother. Those are the only 2 people that have watched that video. Now, so okay, to answer your question specifically, why would somebody choose Bermuda grass? Assuming we're talking about the transition zone, I think it's a function of, in sports turf, seasonality of when you're using it. I also think it's a function of what your growing seasons are typically like and what your resources to take care of that field are, right? So let me explain a little bit. At the highest levels, you've got fields now, and I think most places that we're doing this have switched out and just have gone one direction or the other. But like, for instance, the Eagles, right? The Eagles used to start out with a warm season grass, and then halfway through the season they'd switch out, they do a full resod and switch over to cool season grass for the back half of the year, right? Now, no high schools doing that. Very few, if any, colleges would consider doing something like that. It just doesn't happen at that level, right? So when you go into a situation like that, it becomes, okay, what are my expectations, right? So assuming that this is like a fall sport, right? I'm asking bluegrass essentially in a transition zone to make it all the way through the most stressful part of the year, and then have to be in prime shape for 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 weeks, right? Depending on what the sports season looks like. It's a tall order, right? Especially if you have limited resources, time, budget, things like that to take care of it. So that's one of the reasons that we've gone in the direction of Bermuda grass in certain situations, not all. We've learned some things that maybe we've pushed it too far, and I'll talk about those in a second. But in those cases, I mean, where somebody needs to be looking at, all those weather conditions and factors that might influence a fungicide application. When do we do it? Which AI do we pick? Do we pick what's actually, on our program that we were going to spray, or do we need to switch to something else? with Bermuda grass, I can take all that out of the equation. I can just say, I need you to mow it, I need you to water it, and I need you to fertilize it. And if you do those 3 things all summer long, and like tomorrow here, it's going to be 92 degrees, humid, ugly, disgusting, all the cool season. I'm going to be shitting razor blades all day about. I'm going to look at those worm season fields and be like, you're good. You're fine. Right.
You're good.
And you're going to be in a good position 5-6 weeks from now when fall sports start to be peaking. Right. I like to joke Ray because, he's in Hawaii and, if you get a good swell, everybody stops what they're doing and goes out to the ocean. I always liken growing turf to, it's like riding the wave, You're going to be at the bottom of the wave. You're going to be inshore. You're going to have to get your ass back out on your board, paddle back out into the ocean at some point because ain't nobody staying at the top of the wave for the entire time. But, if I look at that growth of that grass and if I look at the peak of that wave, right, I'm at the peak of the wave pretty much when we get to football season starting here, 3rd week of August, something like that, right? 4th week of August. And I can ride that wave in slowly into shore for the next 10, 12 weeks and be just fine, right? So that's one aspect of it. When we have spring play fields, totally different story. We've had a couple of fields that we've done that have spring and fall sports. It is a challenge because the one thing that what we've learned here in the northern reaches of the transition zone is that winter kill is not so much of a thing as with the cold tolerant newer Bermuda grasses that have been bred specifically to be used in cold areas. It's not winter kill that's getting us. It is the yo-yo effect of temperatures in the springtime. So where we have a few days, 3-4 days in a row that might get up to
using up that
70.
carbohydrate storage, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it saps you out. So you get through 2-3 cycles of that, and you're gonna have some grass that does not come back. Like just gone. Bye-bye. Doesn't exist anymore. And when you have to overseed too, so we've got a few fields that we don't overseed at all. And we're very cautious on how we use those in the springtime, especially in colder times, wetter times, things like that, where they could be prone to injury, things like that. But by and large, those perform fine. It's just you have to be able to tolerate what they look like, especially in the spring, a little bit in the fall. There's things we can do to manipulate, dew, like, basically removing dew in different ways, whether through be chemical or cultural practices, right, to get that off of there and prevent frost from forming on the plant, right, when we're in frost conditions. All that being said, I think, what we see here, bluegrasses are also doing well too. It just takes a little bit higher touch of knowing what you're doing and getting yourself, guiding yourself through that summertime. And I go back and forth. I argue with people within my own company, even every day, of like, is this the right choice? Is that the right choice? Even on fields that are in and active and everything like that. And I always say, hey, there's probably going to be 2 out of 10 every 10 summers that one of those choices is going to make you look like an asshole. Right now, Bermuda grass has made us look like assholes for the most part this year, especially ones that we overseeded that we're trying to go through transition, because transition here is awful because we just can't get hot enough for the sulfonyl ureas to work really, really well, really, really quickly. And then we've got a really short window with which to grow that Bermuda grass back. And that can be challenging if you don't get the temperatures, heat, sun, all that kind of stuff. So there is no silver bullet. I think that's the thing. Ray has heard me say this before, says Matt, is that whenever we talk to clients about grass choice, species selection, things like that, the thing I'll always say is which 3 months of the year.
Until the 4th of July.
Oh, no, not that one. No, I asked a different question. I say, which 3 months of the year can you tolerate your grass looking like complete shit? You tell me those 3 months, and I'll tell you which grass we're going to grow. Right?
Actually, a really good point.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's in it's all about setting those expectations, everything like that. But I don't know. I mean, the first one that we did was in response, not so much that, hey, I was like, hey, we should try Bermuda grass, and I was jazzed to sell that as a solution. We went down the flow chart, just like I asked you all those questions. I didn't just come in there and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. I asked a whole bunch of questions and made them say everything that I wanted to know answers to, some of which I knew the answers already, others I didn't, but I wanted to have them say it so everybody in the room could hear it. And then we worked our way down to you only have the summer. There's never anything in the summer in this field. We have to play spring sports, so your renovation window is from May 15th to August 15th, and we can't spend more than X number of dollars. And I can tell you that threshold is well below what it would cost to sod it with pool season grass. So Bermuda grass it was, and off we went. So, yeah, I don't know that there's a wrong choice. I don't know that there's ever a wrong choice from a species selection unless, you have site implications that affect it that are going to make it a loser from the start. But I think that's one of the things that's crucial. And I'll send you a bunch of I'll send you a whole bunch of videos that I use in classes I teach and things like that. That would be helpful in species selection, things you don't really find in textbooks and things like that. So I'd go on all night, but you can't make a wrong choice unless you're just doing something stupid and trying to put a plant that's not in the right place.
That's what I was gonna say because I have a little test plot at the place I work at our shop. It's about 1,500 square feet, and
Look at that, man. See it.
What?
See it.
Ohio State. Get out of here with that Buckeyes crap, man.
Look at that. These guys up north are they're broken. They don't understand.
What do you say, Matt? Go Vols.
That's right.
But no,
Anyway.
I wanted to see if I can grow some bluegrass. So that's why I was a little curious. So but yeah, that sounds really
if you do in your area, it's going to be brutal. But I know who is it? Wiley is growing HGT in California in some blazing heat. I know they've done at UT. They've done a lot of the Barvet Barenberg HGT here, varying degrees of success. The newer ones, the 365 SS from Mountain View, I know nothing about bluegrass, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Just, all I can talk about is what I've observed. KBG
and what
Ryan,
about
is the 365 supposed to be fairly heat tolerant too? I don't know.
With 365, it's okay on heat tolerance. I mean, I think that that's just the risk you run. I mean, in Wilmington, I guess that would be. I always look at pivots, right? So, like here, for example, okay, if I'm considering Bermuda grass, okay, well, if we have a summer like we do right now, what's the pivot if we don't fully fill in or whatever? Well, it's not the best thing agronomically, but if I need to have that, if let's just say it's a field, not a lawn, playing, like I can do an early overseed. And is it the best thing for the Bermuda? No, but am I going to have a field to play on that's a solid Bermuda base and it's got some ryegrass in there that's a little bit more dense in some spots? Yeah, I can make that work. Now, you say the same thing for Wilmington and bluegrass, right? I might go through 2 or 3 weeks in the summer where it is like all out hell on that Bermuda grass.
That's been this week.
Come September, I can push it with FERT. I might have to overseed a little bit. I mean, you can get bluegrass to move pretty damn quick if you need to, if you have the right growing conditions. And I think that's one thing that is probably undersold a little bit is, if you need to push it, you can push it. Bluegrass will move pretty rapidly. I'll say that.
Yeah, I got a guy down the street from me. He was on here like 2 years ago. I have not seen him since. And Matt, you maybe know from the maybe remember this name from the weekly lawn and garden show. His name is Lord of Junk. That was his username. He lives like two streets down from me, and he's growing bluegrass in his front yard. I think it's bluegrass. I mean, and it looks awesome. He's like the only guy in town that I know that's doing it. But yeah, he's doing it very well. Yeah. He's probably got a pretty good fungicide program going. But
yeah,
one more factor now, Jason. How low is he mowing it?
That's a good question.
Not to be weird. Lord of Junk, if you're listening, I'm not stalking you. I rode past his house today, and it looks pretty high. He's not cut it, which is smart in my opinion, but it looks like about taller than 3 inches, at least higher than 3 inches.
Earmuffs, Ray. Earmuffs.
Whoa. Well,
But
it's
Ray,
because
we've not had a lot of rain this week, so I
well,
think he's
you
trying to let it
see,
go because I don't think he has irrigation.
because the thing that I've observed over the years too is that higher cut grass seems to be okay in places where there's a definitive lack of water. Okay, it works. But the moment you get into either abundance of water, regular irrigation, or high humidity, that's when I start to think hard about my height of cut. Because I've seen it for myself where people come to Hawaii, for example, and they try to treat the Zoysia like the turf type tall fescues that they had back in the States. Oh boy! You know? They then get to meet large patch and Piscium.
Yes.
So, I just start to think now, what are the conditions that you're keeping that grass in specifically? Because that's why I'm always cringing when somebody's on YouTube or whatever, or somebody's on Facebook or whatever, telling people that they have the one size fits all solution to turf grass. That you can do this, or you're supposed to do this, and hey, everything's all fantastic. Water deep and infrequent, mow high, do all that stuff. And then everything is supposed to be great. It's like, no, not really.
Yeah. That's the other thing, is I would say some things you have to figure out for yourself, and there's a lot of information out there that's just out there. I think finding what works and what doesn't, and understanding, I would say this, understanding predictability in turfgrass systems, respecting that it's not always predictable, but understanding predictability and what things influence and what don't, and being able to, going way back to the beginning of this, focus on what's important and don't worry about what's not. Those are really, really crucial skills to being a good turfgrass manager. So, and sometimes you're going to fuck up, and just the way it is. So, yep, don't beat yourself up too bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it to kill grass.
Right. Yeah,
it's worth it. You even when it happens accidentally. I mean, it's you learn from it, and it's a humbling experience to remind you that we're just a cog in the wheel and along for the ride. Because sometimes you'll do something that you're 100% sure that this will be all right, and that one time it isn't.
No,
that's weird. Damn it.
I'll say this real quick. I killed a lady here in town. It was like, no, oh, sorry. Killed a lady's yard.
Jesus.
Oh man!
I was gonna say we should go out more often.
Yeah,
Beat
Kevin,
that, J-Pink. That didn't sound right.
I had only been working. I'd only been doing this. It was like 2020. I'd only been doing this for like 3-4 months at the time. I remember my old boss. He came to me. He was like, "Hey, can you go spray these ladies' beds?" So I did. I mean, why would I not be doing it? So I mixed up. Well, they already had it mixed up. I think it was just at the time. I don't remember. I think it was glyphosate and diclot is all it was. But went out. I was spraying her beds, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, so I blanket sprayed the beds. I didn't hit any of the plants, but yeah, I didn't have the nozzle set up correctly, so I shot about a good foot out of the beds around every single garden bed in the whole yard. And that was that was a fun time. I had to go back and redefine all the beds, about a foot around all of them, got the whole yard. And of course, this wasn't just a normal landscape with beds around the perimeter of the house. I had nice garden beds in the front yard and crepe myrtles that were inside. It was a bad time, but luckily that's about the worst it's gotten. I've not killed a whole neighborhood yet, so I guess that's positive.
Yeah, when you said to kill a lady, though, it was wow.
Not yet.
Surprise,
Not yet.
motherfucker.
It's about as bad as that
Jeez.
mall Santa joke.
Yeah.
Where'd Ray go? Ray's
I'm
drifting
back.
in and out.
Ray got dumped.
Yeah.
There he is. Ray got
I'm
dumped.
back.
What other questions you got?
That I won't keep you guys too long. It's late. I don't want to keep firing stuff at you guys.
Well, I enjoyed this
One more.
a lot. I think
one more. Yeah, do it.
one more. All right,
do
one
You got
more, and
more?
then I want to say something.
If you got one more, we'll do one more.
Let me think. One more. I had them all wrote down, and we went through them.
Well,
all right, that's good.
Trying to think. Give me a topic. Well, I'll just ask a question based off the topic.
What problem do you run into in the field right now that just has you banging your head against the wall most often?
Banging my head against the wall. Okay, let's go. Okay, we'll go with okay, this is a good one. We'll go with the Zoysia grass for some reason. On some of the properties that I'm treating, I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot get. There's two places in particular, very large neighborhoods. I can't get them to green up for anything. No matter what I apply to them, no matter what nitrogen source, no matter what micronutrient foliar package I apply, it doesn't matter. I can't get them to green up, and it's bothering me real bad.
All right, let me ask you this: are they growing?
Yeah. They're growing, but they're not growing like Zoysia grass should grow when it's 90 degrees outside.
You need to check them for nematodes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I had thought of.
And there's one more thing that I would look at too is I'd also look at your soil pH. Because what I've seen in Zoysia is that at some point when the pH gets too low, that Zoysia just gets stunted, and no matter how much nitrogen you throw at it, it always looks like crap. And then if it's non-responsive to micronutrients, that's kind of like my next, warning sign as well, yeah? Is that how come this guy, even though it's fed and what have you, and I'm putting down my iron and my manganese and what have you, even though it still looks bad, where's my soil pH at? And with your handy dandy pH pen, did you know that you can run your own rapid soil pH tests?
I tried it before, but it didn't like it.
Well, because the way I do mine is I get some distilled water or deionized water, and then I make by weight like a couple ounces of soil, a couple ounces of water, shake that thing up, get it all in suspension, let it settle for a half an hour so that all the mud and whatever falls to the bottom. And then I pH pen that resulting, clearish solution. That's my soil pH.
Okay.
And that is good. And that's good to know. But as far as if you suspect nematodes, here's my other sign that will make me suspect nematodes. And I saw this for myself where, if grass looks wilted, crispy, burnt, almost dead, but then I grab the customer's water hose and I start sprinkling the hot spot. If that grass starts coming back right before my eyes as I'm watering it, I run back to the truck and I get the Exteris. Because that turf has nematodes. That's it. And then the other sign that I look for is if I'm in a lawn and the only weed that person has is prostrate spurge, and the prostrate spurge seems a bit aggressive. Again, I plan on first treating for the broadleaf weeds, obviously, but then Exteris. Exteris
Okay.
for sure. Okay? And the reason why I say Exteris is Exteris has an SDHI fungicide in it known as fluopyram that apparently is extremely toxic to various species of nematodes that damage turf. And the price of entry for Exteris is a lot better than that standalone product that Bayer markets specifically for Indemnify. Yeah, because you saw the price tag on that stuff, and
I've sprayed it before, and it's scary.
Yeah, agency price, it is $1,600 for that 17-ounce bottle. I know. Yeah. I know about that. But
yeah, it should come with a bottle of lube when you buy it.
More like it should come with a nice nurse to help ease the pain. My God.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's brutal. But then you can buy Exteris, and if you apply the label rate of Exteris, that is equivalent to the label rate of Indemnify.
Okay.
Okay? And there's one more little note about this whole nematode issue. My other clue regarding nematodes is how bad is the Pythium blight and the large patch in that Zoysia turf every year? How bad does it get? And the reason why I ask,
not too bad. Not at least not this year. Granted, it's the first year I've been on these properties, so.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is because I've noticed that in turf areas that have a nematode issue, the large patch gets rather severe. And when I see severe, it's to the point where I have turf loss, even though I've kept that turf on the standard of care fungicide programs for large patch. But then none of those fungicide programs address nematodes. So yeah, that's like kind of my clue as to something's not right.
That's a lot of good information,
yeah. Okay, so what else do you need to know about Zoysia other than the fact that I don't think that grass should be in the United States?
There he goes. There he goes. We're gonna wrap it up. Jason, shoot me an email with your mailing address. We're gonna put together a little fun little care package for you and get that sent over. And again, like we said last year, we have a spot for you at our Thirsty Thursday meetup, and you do not have to be 21 to go to it. And so don't worry about that. We own the place, we run the place, and they, let me tell you, everybody that's in attendance is so awesome that when we show up there, everyone that works there is like, God, I wish these people would stay all the time, because it's a literal party for everyone. The people that work there, I guess we're all service professionals, right? And so we take care of other service providers, and it's just an all around unbelievable time.
We're good to everybody. We're such we're good people, and you know what? We're not like cheapskates or whatever, because we know what it's like when a cheapskate demands better or more from us, because we don't like that. So when we walk into a place, it's like, okay, everybody tips and orders drinks, orders food, and
lots of compliments to the waitresses and
yeah, we're just extra sweet to the servers. Yeah, we're just extra sweet to the servers because after all, on their end, they don't quite know what to make of a group of 50 lawn people rolling in on them. Okay, they don't know what the heck to make of that. That's like invasion.
And like I said, you want me to talk to your boss or your family or whoever?
Oh, we're good this year.
We'll do that. Okay, perfect.
I got a great boss that listens. I don't have one now that tells me that y'all are fake. Fake.
Good.
What?
Good.
We're fake.
And maybe that old one. I don't know. Maybe we need to take a trip to Wilmington and kick in the door and Kool-Aid man his ass.
He needs it. Yeah, he needs.
With that said, thank you everybody for hanging out. Sunday, we're gonna have a good time, and we'll see you then. Bye.